it's really important for people to understand that there were several locations that shots were being fired from. I believe that there were shots from the back of the president. I believe that there were shots from the front. I believe that there were two locations from the front. One was the grassy knoll, and the other, the location that the fatal headshot came from, which is not the grassy knoll. I received over 3,600 real-time hours of specialized training in just the field of forensics, and was awarded the certification of Senior Crime Scene Analyst. I definitely could take the training that I had on working homicides, which was almost exclusively what I did, and translate that information to the Kennedy assassination. I think it was in maybe David Lipton's book that had a picture of frame 313 that has the blood spatter. I walked over and just looked at it and I said, okay, that's back spatter. That's blood that goes from the entry wound, is projected back towards the direction the force was traveling from. In other words, it goes back towards the shooter. Like most people, when you think about the shots from the right and from the front, what's the front? Where's the front? The front is not the grassy knoll. So if you don't know where the front is, then you don't know where the shot came from. Normally, when you do trajectory analysis to determine where the shot came from, you would start with the entry point, because you're at an autopsy, there's an x-ray, here's a hole, there's a hole, you line the two holes up, or the pathologist puts a dowel at autopsy through the head. They can measure that exact angle as it's traveling through the head, and that gives them a trajectory. The problem is, we don't have a specific point. We don't have an autopsy with a little dowel measuring the angle of impact. What we have is a big area in the front and a big area in the back. I start out by drawing what would be an overhead of a skull, if you were looking down on a head, and I just draw an oval. And you just take that oval and you divide it into 4 parts by drawing a cross and then the lengthwise of the head. And that gives you 4 quadrants. And so what I did is I made that entire front quadrant the entry, and in the entire rear quadrant, the exit. So imagine that it's coming in just to the side on the forehead as you're looking down, right here, okay, and that it's traveling back to come out right behind the ear. That would give you one trajectory line. Now, as you move from in front and then you moved across, every one of those locations is going to be another trajectory line until you finally are over here where it would just come in front of the ear and exit at midline in the back. What you've created is a large area called a trajectory cone, and the shooter is somewhere in that cone. The next step is that you would take the president as he's in the limousine. You would place him in the limousine. Now, in Dealey Plaza, they had Canning, who was a NASA scientist. The Warren Commission asked him to provide measurements on the location of President Kennedy's head, and he did so. There's another person that's done that. His name is Dale Myers, and Dale Myers has done this. Now, these two men are very close in their computations. So they measured how much is the head tilted down, how much is the head tilted to the side, and how much is the head turned from profile as reference to Zapruder. So if Zapruder is at a 90-degree angle, he is turned beyond the 90-degree angle a certain degree. Now, both of these men came up with 26 degrees. So if you take a compass, a protractor, you can put this down on a map of Dealey Plaza. You can measure that angle at 90 degrees plus another 26 degrees, and you have now indicated on your graphic the direction the president is facing. He's looking down and his body is tilted. He's over 26 degrees. If you were to straighten him up, he would be looking 26 degrees from profile to Zapruder. Now, 26 degrees beyond Zapruder makes him looking at the south corner of the triple overpass. That trajectory cone can then be placed within Dealey Plaza to determine where the shooter could be. Now, beyond that, you're going to have injury to the other quadrants of the head. So we know that we're restricted to that field, that angle, those trajectories. So you limit yourself mathematically to a certain range that the shooter can be within. And if you step outside of it, then you're going to have injury to another part of the head. So I did that, and the grassy knoll was not within that area. Not within that area. That eliminates the grassy knoll as being the originator of the fatal headshot. But here's why a shot from the front is going to create a back and to the left. It doesn't have to be straight on to push it that way. Have you ever played pool? Do you know anyone that plays snooker? All right. Ever hit a ball and made it angle into the pocket? Because when you have a round surface and you strike that round surface, it creates a momentum that is angular. And so it goes forward or with the force, but it also angles away from the direction that the force is traveling from. So if you've ever played pool, then you already know why it went back and to the left, although the shot was coming almost directly straight on from the front. I think that we definitely have enough shots to show that there's a conspiracy and that there were probably at least 3 shooters in the plaza that day firing shots. This is just like going to trial. My job when I'm at a trial and I'm on the witness stand as an expert is to educate the jury, give them the information that I have and let them come to a conclusion. I tell them my expert conclusion. They can disagree or they can agree. It is up to them. And if I want them to agree, then I need to give them a persuasive argument with a clear understanding of how I reached my decision. So that is all I can hope to do. It's okay if people disagree with me. I have no problem with that. I'm happy that anyone brings any kind of focus to this because I think that the people that hear the contradictory information are going to want to find out for themselves. Why are these 2 experts not agreeing? And look into it a little more. Well, absolutely the magic bullet is ridiculous. I mean, bullets do not behave the way that they're saying that they want it to behave. And of course, the person saying that was a politician, had no forensic training, had absolutely no idea how bullets react, and hoped that the general public that also had no training would just accept that. Of course, we know that it didn't fly. And I think people are a lot smarter sometimes than politicians give them credit for. The Dallas Police Department did what they could. I think in some places they could have done better. I think that in some places they might not have adhered to their own written standards. I think when it was taken away from them and the FBI did it, the FBI had the mindset that Dallas PD did, and that was, we already have the person that's done it. The minimal work has to be done to prove this. There's not any question in anybody's mind. Everything looked like it was tied together. The Warren Commission had an answer, and they wanted validation, just like you said. They wanted things that would prove them right. And I think that's what they looked at, and that they didn't look at things that would cloud the issue for them. If Oswald had lived and there had been a trial, things may be a little different, because I do believe that at trial, whoever was running that trial would have wanted the loose ends tied up. And that would have meant more information would have come to the forefront. I think when he was killed, it changed the scope and the way they were looking at that particular investigation.
My husband had made friends and worked with a man who was retired as a military sniper. And he was at our home one evening and had no idea what my background was. As far as he was concerned, I was a housewife. So he started talking about his life as a sniper, because that was his life work. So I told him, what if I would want to shoot someone, but I want to blame it on somebody else? I don't want for them to be constantly looking for me. I want to make sure somebody else gets the blame for it. He said, well, if you're going to shoot them and you want to blame it on someone else, you're going to have to make some plans about when is the person accessible. And I said, I can do it outside, because I have a place where I know that they will be, and they'll be outside. So he said, well, you would probably need 3 people. Think of it as a triangle. You put one person at each point. One point would be you shooting the person. Then one point would be the person you want to blame. And then another point would be the distraction. Because when you are a sniper, there are 4 really important things that you have to remember. You have to do 1 shot, 1 kill. That's what he said. He said, you need to know that you can do the job. You need to know that there's concealment, or some way that you are not going to be noticed, that people are not going to see you. You have to be able to get away. And the way that you can do that is you have someone that creates a distraction. Everybody looks that way, and then you shoot, and they don't see you. In the midst of explaining all of this to me, he suddenly stops and looks at me and says, you're talking about the Kennedy assassination, aren't you?
Oh, man.
And suddenly he said that, and I was, how did you know? We talk. We talk. That's the only thing he said. Well, years later, I had an opportunity to speak with Craig Roberts. Craig Roberts wrote One Shot, One Kill, the book. He was also a sniper. So he came to me and says, would you like to go to Dealey Plaza with me? So we go to Dealey Plaza. He walks on the other side. He walks around and he stops at this particular point. Craig Roberts stops at the exact same spot, turns and says, if I were going to do it, this is where I would have been. It was just so nice to have him validate that same spot. Well, if it was the best place for him then, it was probably the best place for the shooter in 1963.